Now, I can't say that I didn't know about this movie before I went to see it. Sometime last year, it was on upcoming movies in Rotten Tomatoes because every week I check what's coming out, and this movie kept getting bumped down month after month until it finally came out this year in February. So you may not have heard about this movie, but I kind of saw it on the upcoming movies list for a couple months now, and it shows why this is one of those movies that gets pushed back to the beginning of another year. From the director that brought us Welcome to the Punch, a movie I've yet to see and only saw the trailer for it back in 2013 when it came out. And from the writer that brought us such classics as Triple X, Return of Xander Cage, and a very forgettable John Cusack movie that I barely remember. I saw it once, mainly because it was on Netflix one day. What was it called? The Number Station? Yeah, so if those movies are any clue of what you're about to get from Collide, you're going to probably get that. Collide is a very straightforward action film starring Nicholas Hoult. Now, Nicholas Hoult's character got into some trouble in America because he used to be a car thief. Now he's in Germany and he's working for some drug dealers. But at this bar, he meets a girl played by Felicity Jones, which I didn't even realize it was Felicity Jones until after the movie got done. He meets her, falls in love with her. She doesn't want to be with him because she doesn't want to be with a bad guy into criminal stuff. But she trusts him and she likes him, so he gets out of that business for her, and now they're together. Unfortunately, Felicity Jones has a condition. She's going to need a kidney transplant, and she doesn't really have the money. So Nicholas Hoult is going to have to do one last job just for her. Unfortunately, as you'd expect, for an action movie, things go horribly wrong. And now you got an action sequence where he's racing to save her, while some bad people want to kill him, get what he's stolen from them, and kill her in the process. So like I said, a very straightforward action film, and if you go into it thinking of it as a dumb action film that you could be entertained by, you might get enough entertainment from this movie, and I stress you might, because for the most part, I did enjoy the action. Now, granted, the action wasn't anything really great. It was pretty medium level, maybe a little bit above average. I think the car chases were actually done really nice. Like, there is definitely some style in this movie when he escapes this warehouse in a car. It's all one long shot, and it's that kind of camera angle where you see the side of the car and you're looking in, and it moves every so often as he's backing out of this warehouse, and that shot was actually really well done. I've seen it done way better and more superb, but it did it in a very competent way. And there's this whole car chase on the Autobahn, which is really good as well. So like I said, the action is entertaining. Unfortunately, if you're not going into it just for the action, if you want a better story, if you want better characters and better acting and better script, this is definitely not the movie for you. See, this is where Collide really falls flat. Now, I don't think the acting is particularly bad. Nicholas Hoult and Felicity Jones do a good job with the characters they're given. Unfortunately, the characters are bland and mediocre and very one-dimensional. And yes, you can have that in action films, especially if it's a movie where it's just action, and there goes my light again, just like that one, it was a horror movie. Was it Rings? Freaking light. I think I just need another new lamp, because I think what's happening is the light bulb, it's screwed in as tight as it can, but it loosens over time for some reason. But anyway, back to Collide, back to the characters. The main characters are one-dimensional, and that's fine for some dumb action films. But this film tries to go beyond the dumb action. Like, there's some style to the cinematography every so often. Sometimes it looks like crap, but there are times during action sequences where it does feel like they tried their best and tried to give it some style. Plus, we have some pretty well-known actors and actresses within this film, especially the main four, Felicity Jones, Nicholas Hoult, Anthony Hopkins, and Ben Kingsley. All four of them in this movie. And this movie also tries to put a big emphasis on the romance. The whole thing is about the romance, the love between these two characters, and what he's going to do in order to try to save her life and do it for love. That's a pretty big thing. You're going to need an emotional attachment to these characters for that to work. You're going to need to believe their chemistry. You're going to need to believe their relationship. Unfortunately, this movie skims over it in a montage that's very short, very edited in a really choppy way. The editing at the beginning of the film, the first act of the film, the editing is pretty terrible, I feel, and really choppy. And especially in this chase scene, which I'll talk about later. For the most part, the editing's fine, except for those things. And the montage is just really poorly done, and you don't get enough of these characters to really buy their relationship, to understand just how deep of a love these characters have for each other. And so when the moment came when Felicity Jones's character was sick and she's shivering on the ground, acting like she has a seizure, which her character is having a seizure, but it looks really bad. And at first I thought she was joking, and I was kind of laughing, and then I realized, oh wait, her character really is supposed to be sick. So that falls flat. The romance, the relationship, the character development, and especially the romance scenes where he's imagining her in the car with him, and it goes slow motion, and everything goes really brightly lit colors, as it's supposed to be romantic, and he's like, those looked really cheesy, and actually the first time it happened, I laughed. Now, as far as the acting goes from the other two big performers in this movie, because I haven't talked about Anthony Hopkins or Ben Kingsley yet. Oh God. So Ben Kingsley is yet in another role where he's playing a different ethnicity, playing a different race. He's Turkish in this movie. And I know Ben Kingsley has a lot of these roles. He's had that role in Iron Man 3, where he's a British actor pretending to be something else. I think there was a movie called Taxi or something like that, where he was an Indian taxi driver. Like, he's done these kind of roles before, and you may not have heard about them, but he sometimes is pretty famous for these roles. He's kind of like a classy version of Rob Schneider. Wow, that came out wrong. Rob Schneider, don't put him in the same class as Ben Kingsley. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's a he's a much better version of Rob Schneider, classier, and the same kind of roles where he has different ethnicities and different races that he plays. That's the only connection I have with these two. So Ben Kingsley is yet another one of these kind of roles. He's Turkish, like I said. He's this mob boss kind of underclassman who wants to be equal partners with Anthony Hopkins. And that leads to the conflict and leads to the heist that Nicholas Hoult has to do for Ben Kingsley's character. But Ben Kingsley is way over the top in this film, and to give him credit, it was really amazing seeing him do it, and it was entertaining. I was far more entertained with his character and Anthony Hopkins' character than I was with the two main leads. And so it's almost like these two big actors feel like they're in on the joke, feel like, oh, we're just going to go over the top, have fun with this. And so you get this movie that's trying to be a serious action flick mixed with a little bit of dumb action, also trying to be a romance film, which falls flat. It's the worst part of the film, even though it's the main focus of the film. And you got this moment, these two actors doing these over-the-top roles that feel like, oh, we're in a straight-to-DVD movie, who cares, let's have fun with it. And so you got this hilariously bad acting that feels like it's meant to be and meant to be self-aware. Speaking of which, Anthony Hopkins is over the top, like I said, just like Ben Kingsley. Honestly, he feels like a Nicolas Cage villain. He feels like what Nicolas Cage was trying to do in Arsenal, just better, acted, and British. Yeah, there's moments where Anthony Hopkins yells in this movie in random moments, And it felt like the random moments when Nicolas Cage yelled an Arsenal earlier this year. I have to say, most of the dialogue is either mediocre or just bearable, or it's downright weird to the point where you're questioning, what kind of movie am I watching? There are 3 or 4 moments in this movie where I'm taken out of the action, taken out of the sort of enjoyment that I was having with the movie, and then listening to the dialogue and thinking, what the hell am I watching? Like, there's 2 moments. There's like a monologue with Ben Kingsley where he's... And then there's another monologue with Anthony Hopkins' character as well, and sometimes that dialogue is just like, you feel like you're in a totally different movie here. Even though there is definitely some bad things, things that it falls flat on, there's also entertaining moments that I did legitimately like the action sequences. And to top it off, there are moments that are so bad it's good, so bad it's hilarious. So honestly, I don't even know how to feel with this movie because it's so even with all 3 of these elements. There's just enough bad things in the movie as much as the things that I legitimately liked in the movie, and in between that there are bad, horribly funny things in this movie that were just plain entertaining. I will say that even though the camera work is decent at times, there are moments where it just looks completely awful, and that is the foot chase where Nicholas Hoult is running from a guy in these streets in this small town. That's when the camera work and editing became unbearable for me, but thankfully that was the only major shaky cam moment in the entire film, at least for me. And there is some really choppy editing at the beginning of the film. Other than that, camera work and editing wise, I was completely fine with. It was serviceable. So overall, I was kind of enjoying this movie, but it's one of those films that I wouldn't recommend you go out and see it in theaters because most likely you'll be disappointed. I know everyone has different opinions, but if you want a serious action film that's really good and outstanding, you might as well just go see John Wick Chapter 2 again, because I think that might still be out in theaters. Heck, I honestly would recommend Sleepless more than I would with Collide. Even though the action sequences in Collide are good, I think all the ones in Sleepless are still better than everything in Collide. If anything, Collide is more of a rental, but for me, I'm going to give Collide 2.5 stars. Pretty average. I liked it, but there were plenty of things I hated about it. But some of that was canceled out because there were things that I legitimately liked and things that were so bad it's good. It's really hard to judge this movie. Oh, speaking of which, I almost forgot. There is one CGI element in this movie that looked horrendously bad. There's this truck crash. Looked awful. But then whenever these other cars crashed, they all looked practical. They felt like they were real car crashes, and they probably were. And a lot of them were really amazing looking, especially when cars flipped like crazy. So I have to give credit to Collide for that. So did you see Collide? What'd you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews of 2015, 2016, or 2017. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was just my opinion.